My day with Einstein, playing 20 questions. I arrive at Einstein's unnumbered office, curiously located on Einstein Drive. I look at my wristwatch. It is 11 a.m. The great man is sitting, picking lint from his ruffled sweater. A man, austere, meticulous, and slightly haunted, was standing next to him. He was in his mid-40s, in a dark suit, tie, and thick-rimmed glasses. His face was angular, his gaze intense yet withdrawn, as if perpetually scanning the edges of logic for cracks. He carried himself with a kind of fragile dignity, elegant, but never performative. "Oh, Michael, meet Kurt Gödel. He is like sunshine, even on rainy days. He brightens my little walk to the office." Einstein was in his 70s, with a wild halo of white hair and deeply furrowed brow, the iconic look we see in pictures. Though he had long since revolutionized physics, his presence now was more that of philosopher, scientist, ruminative, gentle, and quietly eccentric. Let me explain myself. I am sleeping somewhere in a recliner in 2025, thrust into a time-traveling stupor. Ever since childhood, at the moment of REM sleep, I entered into an astral state that flings me through a wormhole to any place I desire. Sometimes it exudes a mesmerizing subliminal effect. Einstein thinks we have an appointment. He reached to shake my hand. He is holding a spoon. "Sorry," he said. "Excuse me." When I get tired, I sit up straight in my chair, and I grab a spoon that I can see your wheels churning. Why, you ask? It's at that moment of surrender that the spoon drops and wakes me to the insights of the twilight. He stops, looks quizzical. "Who are you?" "I'm from the future," I said. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes twinkling beneath those heavy lids. Kurt Gödel was quietly sitting on a stool near the files, listening. Have we found a unified field theory, or is nature still teasing us with her veil? No, but people still mistake cleverness for wisdom. I said, have we learned restraint? Do we still confuse power with wisdom? He asked, "We've learned restraint in moments, Albert, but not in rhythm. It flickers like conscience under pressure. We built machines that can think faster than us, but we still struggle to act wisely. Power has grown louder, wisdom quieter. Yet there are people, ordinary, uncelebrated, who try to repair what they didn't break, who speak truth. They are not the ones that history will remember. So no, we haven't learned restraint as a rule, but we've learned it as a possibility, and that possibility endures. I wasn't born until 1953, so I do not exist. You wouldn't be able to confirm my existence. But I can tell you what you're thinking. You will write an essay called Out of My Later Years. It hasn't been published or your ideas widely circulated. It's an essay on the dangers of nationalism and your reflections on the role of the individual in society. My request is simple, Mr. Einstein. Just a chance to interview you to get a fresh perspective. How many questions? Einstein asked. Just a few, sir. My name is Michael. 20 minutes. That's all I need. Mr. Einstein, when did you know you were a genius? I never truly knew I was a genius. I only knew I was passionately curious. As a boy in Munich, I was slow to speak, and my teachers thought me dim. I questioned everything. Why light bends, why clocks tick, why the universe doesn't collapse under its own weight. I wasn't trying to be brilliant. I was trying to understand. The moment I felt something stir deeply was when I imagined riding alongside a beam of light. That thought, simple, childlike, eventually unraveled Newton's universe. Genius, if it exists, is not a crown worn proudly. It's a quiet rebellion against the obvious. It's persistence, not perfection. And often it's misunderstood. Mr. Einstein, what led to the general relativity theory? What insights occurred to you? What led me to general relativity was not a single insight, but a slow, stubborn unraveling of a universe's fabric. I had long admired Newton's laws. They were elegant, powerful, and nearly divine, but they had cracks. They treated gravity as a force acting at a distance, instantaneous and invisible. That troubled me. I wanted something deeper, something that didn't just describe gravity, but explained its essence. The first tremor came in 1907, when I was sitting at my desk at the patent office in Bern. I imagined a man falling from a rooftop. If he dropped freely, he wouldn't feel his own weight. That simple thought, the equivalence between free fall and weightlessness, was the seed. I called it the equivalence principle. It whispered that gravity and acceleration might be two faces of the same truth. Then came the long years of mathematical struggle. I had to learn the language of curved geometry, Riemannian geometry, to be precise. I realized that gravity wasn't a force pulling objects, but rather the curvature of spacetime itself. Mass tells spacetime how to bend, and spacetime tells objects how to move. In 1915, after nearly a decade of wrestling with equations and intuition, I presented the final field equations of general relativity. They were beautiful, terrifying, and unlike anything physics had seen. They predicted the bending of light by gravity, the slowing of time near massive bodies, and even the expansion of a universe. But the insight, Michael, was not a flash. It was a quiet rebellion against simplicity. It was a courage to believe that the universe is not flat, not fixed, but supple and strange. Mr. Einstein, what led to the next breakthrough? The next breakthrough came not from certainty, but from discomfort. After general relativity, I stood before a universe newly curved, newly alive. But something gnawed at me, quantum theory. It was rising fast, bold, and strange, claiming that particles behave like ghosts, uncertain, probabilistic, flickering between possibilities. I admired its ingenuity, but I could not accept its indifference to causality. So I turned inward, toward a dream, a unified field theory. I wanted to stitch gravity and electromagnetism into one elegant tapestry. I believe the universe must be governed by harmony, not dice. But the mathematics resisted me. The quantum world danced to a rhythm I could not tame. Still I pressed on. I explored higher dimensions, abstract geometries, and tensor fields that bent beyond intuition. I published papers, some promising, many flawed. The world moved on to quantum mechanics and atomic bombs. I remained stubborn and solitary, chasing unity. The insight, if you can call it that, was this: not all breakthroughs are triumphant. Some are quiet refusals to abandon beauty. Mr. Einstein, I said, not only has quantum theory been proven, but we use it every day in my time. Today, quantum theory powers technologies like lasers, semiconductors, and quantum encryption. China's Mishia satellite uses entangled photons across thousands of kilometers to enable secure communication, an eerie but elegant confirmation of quantum mechanics. Einstein leans back, silent. Then, slowly, he speaks. So the dice have not only been thrown, they now build your machines. He chuckles, but it's not joy, it's resignation laced with awe. Entanglement, that ghostly whisper across space. I called it spooky, not because I doubted its reality, but because I feared its implications. And now you tell me it is harnessed, disciplined, made useful, that is both beautiful and absurd. He pauses, eyes distant. I spent my final decades chasing unity, not utility. I wanted the universe to be knowable, not merely predictable. But perhaps I was wrong to resist the poetry of uncertainty. Then, with a faint smile, tell the future this: I did not lose to quantum theory. I lost the elegance of nature, refusing to be simple. Gödel's silence is never empty. He had been listening quietly to the conversation. Gödel leaned forward, eyes shadowed by abstraction, and asked, Michael, if the architecture of meaning is incomplete, as I proved in mathematics, do you still believe a life can be complete? Does ambiguity comfort you, or does it ache? No, I don't believe a life can be complete, but I believe it can be dignified. I said. I paused, letting the silence hold. Your incompleteness theorem taught us that even the most rigorous systems carry truths they cannot prove. I've come to accept that memory works the same way. There are gestures I'll never explain, griefs I'll never resolve, and moments that ache without closure. But I've learned to honor them, not as flaws, but as architecture. I glanced toward Einstein. Ambiguity doesn't comfort me. It humbles me. It reminds me that meaning isn't a conclusion, it's a presence, a way of staying with what resists resolution. If completeness is impossible, then perhaps our task is not to finish, but to endure with grace.